Post வந்து இது பண்ணணும். Alan,
Thanks, sir.
Alan, sound எப்படி இருக்கு?
Okay, sir. Okay, clear. Done.
Alan? Hello? Hello? Alan?
Sir.
Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
கேக்குதுல்ல
கேக்குது. Okay, sir.
சரி. ஹலோ.
Watch it, bro. Watch.
ஹலோ.
என் வாழ்க்கை எல்லாத்தையுமே
இதெல்லாம் கிடையாது. நான் தான் சொல்றேன்.
start my video கொடுக்கணும். Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I start my video or
Yeah, you can start your video, ma'am. Start video, and around 11 o'clock we can start the presentation after welcome. Yeah.
okay. Okay, once I start, I should just put share screen. That's all.
What, ma'am?
Once you start, I have to just click on
Yeah.
share screen. Am I right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
You want me to do that now?
Yeah. No issues, ma'am. You can close. Yeah.
I can close.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
அலன்
Yes, sir.
எப்படி எல்லாம் ஓகே தானே?
Okay, sir. Okay. ஒரு 20 minutes last date. நான் வரட்டும் participants.
டுவெல் 30.
Yes, sir.
12:30.
Mm-mm.
Hello?
Sir.
மேடத்தை லைன்ல வர சொல்றீங்களே?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Sir, shall we start?
After 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Exactly 11 o'clock we can start. Alan? 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 MJB? Hello? 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 Alan, shall we start? Alan? Alan? MJP?
Yes.
Shall we start? Shall we start?
Alan will come to-
Shall we start?
Just wait.
Okay, okay. Shall we start?
Start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, friends. I am Dr. Janardhanan, Dean and Director of Faculty of Management Studies of Nurul Islam Center for Higher Education. I am very happy to welcome all the participants from across the country to the 5-day faculty development program organized by the Faculty of Management Studies of Nurul Islam Center for Higher Education, Kumarakoil, Tamil Nadu. This FDP, application of tools and techniques in research methodology, will definitely help you to acquire additional knowledge in the field of research. From the last 4 days feedback from the participants, I confirmed the quality of this FDP. I want to congratulate all the participants for your active participation in this faculty development program. As usual, today's section is also will be very useful to all of you. Today's topic is data collection tools, questionnaire format, and question types. Resource person for today's section is Dr. Florence John, Head of the Department of PG Department of Commerce from the reputed Madras Christian College. She is an academician of repute, having 29 years of teaching and research experience in the area of financial management. She is a trained facilitator in human resource management. I, on behalf of Noor Islam Center for Higher Education welcome Dr. Florence John to this faculty development program. In this juncture, I want to thank our Chancellor Dr. A.P. Majid Khan for his continuous support for this program. I also want to thank Pro Chancellor Dr. Pirimal Swami, Mr. Faisal Khan, Vice Chancellor Dr. Kumaraguru, Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. Chandrasekhar, Registrar Dr. Thirumal Valavan, Director Academics Dr. Shajan, and all the officials of this university. Now, I request today's resource person, Dr. Florence John, to start the presentation. Correct.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can I
Yes,
start?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Good morning to everyone who have gathered here for this faculty development program. I thank Dr. Janardhanan for introducing me. I would like to correct that I am not the head of the Department of Commerce. I am teaching in the Department of Commerce. Let me thank the authorities of Noor Islam Center for Higher Education for inviting me to be a resource person for this faculty development program organized by the Faculty of Management Studies. I would like to express my special thanks to Dr. M. Janardhanan Pillai, Professor and Head of Faculty of Management Studies. Let me start the session. Okay, the topic given to me is data collection tools, question types, and format. And data collection tool, I'll be covering the topics in 3 parts. The first part, I'll be dealing with data collection tools. The second part with the question type, and the third part with the questionnaire format. Data collection tool, it has a very important connotation in the context of research. Data collection tool refers to the devices or instrument used to collect the data, which is required either by the researcher or by the business people or entrepreneurs. Whoever is interested in doing research, they would like to gather information. Information is power for anyone who would like to carry out the research, whether it is an academician or a non-academician. How we gather that information should be one of our major concerns. And also, which of the data collection method is the best for the particular study. Whoever wants to collect data has to keep these 2 things in their mind before they decide the data collection tool. It is just a collection of, we should not think that it is only a collection of a set of random facts and figures. These set of facts and figures only will be of great help to the researchers to carry out their task. And the data collection tool has been defined as a process of gathering and measuring information on variable interests in an established systematic fashion that enables one to answer queries, start a research question, they test the hypothesis and evaluate the outcomes. And the data collection tool to be used by the person who is involved in the research depends on the research design which the particular person chooses. What is the research design? Research design is the set of methods and procedures used in collecting, analyzing measures of the variables specified in the research problem. So normally the researcher identifies the research problem and also identify the various variables which need to be measured. And that defines the term research design. There are two types of research design. One is a qualitative research design. Qualitative research design is a method extensively used by the scientists and researchers studying human behavior, opinions, themes, and motivations. And researchers rely on qualitative research design methods to find out an answer for why a particular theory exists or what respondents have to say about that theory. And quantitative method is a manner in which they help reveal the behavior of the respondents, the perception of the target audience with reference to the particular research topic chosen. And normally it is non-numeric in nature, and it helps us to explore how decisions are made, and it also provides the researcher with a greater insight, and it helps them to come out with a good solution or outcome for a particular research problem chosen for the study. The second method is a quantitative research method. And in quantitative research method, where the details collected are numerical in terms. It is defined as a systematic investigation of a phenomena by gathering quantifiable data and performing statistical or mathematical or computational technique. The quantitative researcher may collect information either from the existing information available. If they want to collect from the customers, they can collect from the existing customers or from the potential customers. Normally, this quantitative research is used in social sciences using statistical methods to collect data for the purpose of the research study. And in this quantitative, they apply mathematical framework, they apply statistical tools, and that's how the data, whatever has been collected, is analyzed by the researcher to come out with the particular conclusion. Let me move on to the qualitative research methods. I mentioned there are two types of design. One is a qualitative and another one is a quantitative. Let me first move on to the qualitative research method. In qualitative research method, first one is the interview method, and focus group method is another way of conducting a qualitative research. Third one is ethnographic research, and fourth one is case study research, and the fifth one is, in these types of research, normally we think only the social scientists usually started using the qualitative research. If you take commerce or business people or management people, they generally confine their studies to the quantitative research. But qualitative research also has a significant role to play in the conduct of the study. And what are the tools to be used by the person who is involved in a qualitative research depends on the method chosen by the researcher. It can be an interview method, or it can be a focus group method, or it can be a case study research method. Sorry, a minute.
Ma'am, please unmute, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry for the pause. The slide got stuck. So let me again mention, there are 5 methods of qualitative research: interview method, focus group, ethnographic, case study, and content analysis. In the interview method is the first method of data collection. And there are different methods of conducting an interview. One is one-to-one interview method. In one-to-one interview method, the interviewer will contact the interview face-to-face. It's a face-to-face. In a telephonic, it's not a face-to-face, no face-to-face, but still a personal interaction will be there between the interviewer and other things. And in-depth interview where they would like to have a greater insight into the thoughts, feelings, and behavior of certain important issues to be studied, they adopt this in-depth interview method. Group interview, when different opinion, more than one people's opinion are required for a particular problem or a particular study, then this method will be adopted. And now, because of availability of technology and other things, online interview is also available. And based on the method, I mentioned that whatever be the type of research, based on the method selected by the researcher, the data collection tools will be used. If the researcher adopts an interview method, the data collection tools required is audio, digital, camcorder, Question Pro, Skype, Zoom. And in case if anyone is using iPhone or iPad, they can even use FaceTime to conduct the interview, because the technology helps the researcher to carry out this. Then second type of interview method, second type of qualitative research method is focus group. In the focus group, the discussions will be based on the number of participants. They can choose minimum of 7 to a maximum of 12 people to capture their experience and to view regarding certain specific issues relating to the research question chosen by the researcher. Focus group data collection method is more suitable for studies where multiple perspectives, perception of more than one person is required. This type of methodology can be chosen by the researcher. And the data collection tools used for the focus group study is this. They need, because when a focus group is involved, whatever has been asked, it has to be noted, it has to be observed and noted down. So the notepad or maker is required, audio video recorder, timer is there, and more importantly, the consent form and the questionnaire. Because we need to, let me show the consent form, the sample. The consent form appears like this because it's necessary to get the consent of the people who are involved in the focus group, why the particular research has been taken, and their research, whatever their conversation inputs they put, it's going to be recorded, and they're going to analyze it, and it's going to be used for what purpose should also be made known to them and get their consent. Hence, the consent form becomes essential for the researcher. So any of you like to adopt a focus group method of conducting a qualitative research, need to have this consent form from the participants. And the questionnaire normally will have 3 components: engagement question, exploration question, and exit question. Here I've given an example of a question for a focus group on dental flossing. So first, it is necessary for a researcher to engage the participants. So what is your favorite toothpaste is one of the questions. Then they move on to exploring with regard to dental habits. Then the question, I told you time is also an important tool. and when to exit from exploration. That should also be planned by the researcher to exit on time. And the focus group research has been carried out even in early 1950s. Normally, we don't, we the researchers, whether normally the academic researchers are more inclined towards quantitative method. We are not used to exploring the qualitative, but let me tell you, even the management people who are involved in the line of finance, marketing, they can also adopt focus group method to carry out a research. Here I'm placing before you an example of a focus group study carried out in 1950. And this is by the Chrysler Plymouth, famous car manufacturing company in 1950s. They were struggling to increase their sales volume. And that was the problem. And that problem was identified why there was a need for a company to identify why they're not able to increase their sales growth, increase their market share. So they conducted a focus group study, and it was found that the wives are the ones who decide the car which has to be purchased by the family. So the decision making is done by the wives at home even during 1950s, and they were choosing more sensible sedans over youthful, exciting cars. So that was a thing identified by the people who are involved in the focus group research. The matter was reported to the company, the manufacturing team, and they started advertising, targeting women, focusing on the nature of the requirement by the women in the family. And the car manufacturing company also became more family-oriented one, based on the outcome of the focus. So what is the benefit of this for that business unit, Chrysler Plymouth, through the research? They're able to increase their sales, and that made them a leading car designers, and their brands became very popular even after that, and they were able to improve their market share. That's the power of focus group. So at this juncture, I would like to give you one more example also of Domino's Pizza. They also had a problem in 2009 with regard to the quality of the product supplied by them. And when the focus group was involved, the pizza manufacturers did not know how to improve the sales. So they tried out through a focus group study, which identified the problem in the quality. And the matter was reported to the company, and they also admitted there is a problem in the quality, and they tried to improve the new relationship between the customer and the manufacturer, the Domino's, and they accepted the running criticism by the customers. They listened to them, responded to them, and created a better pizza. And the result of this, there was an increase in 14.3% over the previous year, 2008. And they are from 2000, in 2000, they hit the market as the fastest food industry in terms of the growth in sales volume. And let me tell you here to encourage people who are involved in this focus groups method, those who are interested in creating a patent or intellectual property rights, or who like to enter into a consultancy, they can use this focus group research methodology, tie up with collaborate with the corporates which are facing a problem, maybe a problem like what I mentioned here, or any of the problem which the company is willing to share with the researchers. Take up the problem, start from there, conduct a group study, give a solution. It's a great privilege both for the academicians, and it's a commercial benefit for the company, which gives the permission for the academicians to carry out this research. Let me move on to the next method, which is an ethnographic research. Ethnographic research is an in-depth observational method. Normally, ethnography is done through an observation. It studies people in their natural environment. So not the participants will not be asked to come out of their natural setting in their usual environment. The observation is made by the researcher. And the Harvard Business Review has defined ethnography as a branch of anthropology that involves trying to understand how people live their lives. So though the Harvard Business Review has defined ethnography as a branch of anthropology, earlier only anthropologists used ethnographic research method as a qualitative method of carrying out research. But now ethnography has also been used in all the fields, not only by the anthropologists, in all the fields, many social scientists, researchers are using this method for carrying out a research. And for example, if the researcher wants to know the consumer's lifestyle, there is a need to carry out an in-depth study. If there is a need to understand their culture, change in the culture, what is their motivation, and what are the settings, the present setting, how are they going to move ahead? So in that circumstances, ethnographic research will be of use. What are the data collection tools? Normally, this ethnography research is one-to-one, and it is longitudinal in nature. Longitudinal in nature means it's over a longer period of time, and it focuses on one particular problem. Since the period is longer, it is expensive, expensive in terms of time consumption. Not much of tools are required, not much of finance is required to carry out ethnography. Only a researcher who is willing to spend more time in analyzing and probing a particular environment, business environment or a social environment, they can adopt this ethnographic research. And I think those who are into quantitative research can move towards this qualitative research to make research more meaningful, more practical. In that way, ethnographic research will definitely be of great help. And what are the data collection tools used by the ethnographers, the people who are involved in ethnographic research? One is semi-structured or in-depth. I'm using the word semi-structured. I'll be explaining about the questionnaire in the later part. The semi-structured means it's not fully structured because it's one-to-one interaction. And in a way, they will enter into a interview mode with the person with the idea of getting in-depth knowledge of a particular environment or a particular situation or a particular problem. So they'll create the researcher should have a set of concepts or a set of research questions which need to be explored through conversation. That is the semi-structured or in-depth interview. In-situ interview means, I've already mentioned, ethnographic research is carrying out the research in the natural environment. So this in-situ interview method comes, interview as a tool comes in that aspect. So ask the questions, conduct the interview of the people who the researcher intended to interview about their usual activities in their usual place of work or at their usual place of living without disturbing the setting. That is called in-situ. Going along, live where they live, where the respondents, where the people chosen for the study are there, without affecting their regular work, while they are at their regular work, while they are carrying out their task, while they are carrying out their purchasing activities. For example, if a researcher wants to observe the consumer behavior through institute interviews, they can have the interview, semi-structured interview, travel along with them when they go for shopping, observe, ask certain clarifications in the process of observing. That is institute. Shadowing is also, it's a little in-depth type of institute interviews. Shadowing is go follow the interview wherever they go for a certain period of time, not without their knowledge. I mentioned that consent form is necessary for focus group. It is required even in all the types of qualitative research, because without the consent, if we're shadowing, the researcher will get into a serious problem. To avoid that, the researcher need to identify the target person or a group of people. If they want to do shadowing, they should have been informed, their permission would have been obtained, but without disturbing them, without knowing if you want to study their facial expression while making a choice of their product, while conversing with the salesperson, this shadowing. Then observation, observing them without even noticing them, how a particular person chooses a product. If we want to study about the consumer behavior again, this observation, or any social problem, if a researcher is intended in studying, it can be observed in a place where they are there. Then archives is another tool used. Archives, I hope all of you know, it's a place where it's an accumulation of historical data, and it is a primary source document. For example, a researcher who would like to study about culture in Chennai city, you can put wherever the place or whatever the thing you want to study, and the culture has evolved. What is the present culture? And you want to study how the culture has evolved in due course of time. The historical data plays a very crucial role in that, where a researcher can get. This archives is a tool available for the researcher to retrieve information, to identify from where the present culture has evolved, how we have moved, how the type of shopping has evolved, the present level of shopping, how it has evolved, how the product usage has evolved. Anything can be studied. If it has to be based on a past data, these archives play a greater role in that. And another one is a contextual interview. Contextual interview is where the researcher will interact with the respondent while observing them. So observation and interview will go hand in hand. Then we call it as a contextual interview. Then online ethnographics. Online ethnographics is using online method in conducting the interview. Contextual is traditional. When it is done online, it is online. When certain digital kits are used, it becomes a digital ethnography. So the difference between online and digital ethnography arises with regard to the tools used, right? I can give you one example how an online ethnographic research can be carried out. Online communities are there. I can quote an example of one of the online community, online gaming community. Video games have become very popular, and many youngsters, why youngsters, even some elders are addicted to this game, and that is an online gaming community. Assume a researcher would like to carry out a research to find out, study the behavior of this online community. This online ethnography and digital ethnography method can be used, and information can be collected from their blogs, from the journals, their mobile diaries. And if you want to capture some of their information, digital cameras can be used to collect the information. Because if a researcher wants to study about online gaming community, how huge, what is the size of a population, what are the popular comments they make about it, and what is the context in which they play, what type of games they play, and what are the benefits of it, what are the problems they go through, all those things, the entire social issues surrounding that. Or if a person wants to study from the marketing perspective of it, how to improve the gaming industry of a particular game, then the marketing research may also be carried out through this manner. So these are the various tools used by a researcher when the researcher adopts ethnographic research as a method of study. Let me give an example of ethnographic research. This is also not very new. Ethnographic research is very old. Even business units have started using it starting in 1995. I've given here an example of an Intel company which has adopted this ethnographic research strategy to identify or to project their future markets. In 1995, in early 90s, the Intel was manufacturing the PC only to be used at workplace. So any PC to be used at workplace has a different processor and a different platform, which is not required for home use. So in 1995, before 1995, the Intel was marketing, their target audience were only the workplace users of personal computers. Then they wanted to create a distinct market. They want the company, Intel wants to grow from offering PC only at workplace to a different. So they started asking a lot of questions through ethnographic research. These are the questions emerge. Will telephone and PC technology converge? Now you see how the telephone and television and PC technology has converged. Are baby boomers retaining their PC and TV habits as they age, as they grow older? Are they comfortable shifting to new media? Will smartphones take over most of the functions of personal computers? These were the questions asked in the early 90s by the group of researchers who adopted ethnography as a method of carrying out a research. They analyzed the pattern and they conducted a customer survey. They collected data, and later on they gave a report, and later on only, based on this ethnographic only, the home PCs were started manufacturing with different types of processor and the platform. And now imagine they have gone in, the Intel market now, they are there everywhere. One of the advantages still they are growing is they are able to identify what is the future requirement of the market. They have employed 2 dozen anthropologists and also trained ethnographers to study the market, to study the trend in the market. That's the power of ethnography and information collected through ethnographic research. So again, I would like to give a suggestion for the researchers here who would like to get into consultation mode and other things. This will definitely be of use, not only for academic purpose, even you can tie up with business industries, help them in carrying out an ethnography study where your outcome, but it should be done properly, was where identifying a research problem, identifying the real problem, so that the projection can be done for the company, like how I've explained here in this Intel, how the ethnographic research helped them to project their future market trend. And that's why they didn't have a fall. It's a continuous growth for the Intel in the market. So that's the power of ethnographic research. Let me move on to another method of research. It's a case study research. And case study research is a strategy where a particular phenomena is investigated in the real life context. And it will have an in-depth investigation, either of an individual or of a group of people, or if a researcher wants to explore the causes of certain principles, then this kind of case study method can be used by the researcher. It's little time consuming because of the depthness of the study. And these are the tools used by the researcher involved in the case study research. One is a direct observation, where the researcher will directly observe the individual or a group of individuals or a particular phenomena. If it needs to be observed, a particular phenomena will be observed. And participant observation can also be adopted, where more than one person will be there to adopt. Survey is also another tool used to collect data to have an in-depth insight into the phenomena chosen or individual chosen for the study. Normally, they are all open-ended interviews to have, because I told you it's a studying of a phenomena or of a person, to have a deeper insight into that situation or a person. Hence, it needs to be an open-ended questions. Documents also need to be reviewed. If a case study method has to be adopted, what are the related documents? What the documents related to the objective of the study, not necessary to review all the documents. Then archival records also plays a greater role. Artifacts also may also be used. These are the tools used by the individual who are involved in the case study research. So it's not necessary that a researcher should adopt all of these methods. They can adopt, but through one method, not only through direct observation, it's possible for a researcher to come out with the outcome, better outcome. So they can combine one or more of the tools to get the deeper information. Let me give you an example of a case study research carried out by the team of Harvard University. There are a lot of these things are there. I thought I'll take this because I hope all of you will remember in 2008, the terrorist attack on the Taj Hotel in Mumbai. And still it is there fresh in all of our minds. And this incident attracted the group of academicians in Harvard University to study the situation, the phenomena, a rare phenomena. Let me put it as a rare phenomena. Because the day after the onslaught on the Taj Mumbai, 31 people died and 20 were hurt, but the hotel employees were praised by almost all the media, not only by the media in India, even media outside India. They praised the employees and the owners of the Taj Hotel because the dedication which they worked. And the guests also, they praised the employees. This is the background of the group of Harvard University people to carry out a case study research of this particular event. This is a case study of an event, and this event attracted because the statements which came in the newspaper and various media praising the employees of the Taj Hotel in that critical situation, how the employees behaved. I hope all of you, those who remember that incident, if you remember rightly, the employees, though they knew the secret passage for safety, none of them left the hotel premises. If they wanted to save their lives, they could have left. There is no rules and regulations asking the employees to stay back. There is no written law at all. No communication was there between the superiors and the employees, the owners and the employees, to how to respond in that situation. It's all instantly how the employees responded in that situation attracted the academicians to carry out a research. So they used the newspaper information. That's one of the source documents which they have used. The people, they observed, they came over here to India to observe the situation, to observe the employers, not on the day of the incident. After that, when they tried to construct a case study, they came to the spot to observe the situation, observe the work environment, and they also went through their HR policies. HR policies, how it has been evolved from its inception till now. And they were amazed about their HR policies, their recruitment system, and only that enabled the employees to stay back. And they were so dedicated. The outcome of the study done by the researchers has given that it's a value-driven recruitment system. Then they preferred employee recruited from hinterland because that's where traditional Indian values. So they did not go to any top B schools or the top institutions to hire people. They gave values importance, and hence their recruitment place from where they recruited the employees also different. Their training and their reward system. These were the reasons identified by the researchers for the overwhelming response of the employees' dedication to their work and also of their desire to protect their guests towards safety, rather than some of the employees even died in that process. They sacrificed their life. That's why the title is Ordinary Heroes of the Taj. And that's the power of case study. So those researchers who are interested in analyzing a particular event, studying a particular phenomena, can adopt this method of case study research, apply the tools, find out what has happened, come out with the outcome, which will be of great use. It will be definitely a theoretical contribution to the academicians, and it will definitely be of help to the either to the industry or to any other organization on whose behalf the researcher would like to carry out the research. So that's the power of case study research. Let me move on to our next method of content analysis. This is also another method of research. I don't know whether commerce people, business people, people who are into financial researchers, we adopt this content analysis. And it's a very interesting tool used by the researchers, and definitely a good research can be carried out by adopting this content analysis. It's a research technique for making replicable and valid inference from data to their context message. That's how it has been defined by Quantitative in 1980s. In 85, it has been defined as a methodology that uses a set of procedures to make a valid inference. Then it has also been defined by Mr. Stone as a procedure for assessing the relative extent to which the specified references, attitudes, themes relate to a given message or document has been analyzed. So that's how content analysis has been defined by the researchers. And there are various tools required for carrying out this content analysis, because the content, I hope you understood the meaning of the content. Whatever the content available need to be analyzed. The content can be a newspaper content. If you would like to analyze a folk song, or a short story, or any television program, or any other text documents, or symbols, or any artifacts, pictures, audios, or videos, or business documents, or any websites, feedbacks, call center transcripts, everything, anything need to be analyzed. You can a researcher can adopt a content analysis method, which is a qualitative research method. And the content can be taken from any of the tools I have mentioned here. Now, since we are living in a digital era, software is also available for content analysis. One of the popular software is a WordStat. It is a very easy to use content analysis, and it is a text mining software. This software helps in extracting the information, and the information extracted can be analyzed. Then the outcome can be used by either by the business people or by the researcher. The rapid miner text extension, it's an open source software. It is statistical text analysis tool, a software tool. So any researcher who would like to adopt a content analysis, they can use any of these tools which I mentioned, or all of these tools which I mentioned here, to carry out the content analysis. Let me give you one example of a content analysis which has been done in the year 1994 by a person named Mr. Devi Prasad. So I have just compiled the whole of the study and put it in the two blocks here. And David Prasad his research objective was to study the problems related to dowry-related death or abuse. He wanted to study that it's a social problem, which was very high during that period, and even in the earlier period. So Mr. David Prasad wanted to do a research on that using a content analysis. So, his tool he has used is the newspaper. The content which has come in the newspaper from January 1981 to December 1988. That was the period from which he has collected the content from the newspaper. He has chosen 3 English daily newspapers, 6 regional language newspapers, that is the Telugu. It's a daily newspaper which he has chosen. And the type of information Mr. Devi Prasad, the researcher, has chosen is the background of the victim. Why the victim has committed that, either it can be an abuse or a death, why it has happened, that's a background. Then who are the persons involved in the conflict, and what are the possible causes of conflict, and what is the nature of victims' abuse and death. These were the information which were gathered by Mr. Devi Prasad to examine the characteristics of dowry related, not all the characteristics, certain characteristics of dowry related death or abuse. And his inference is like this. So he has analyzed, I told you he has used 3 English newspapers and 6 regional daily newspapers. From each of these papers, he used 4 news items. The news story is what is reported by the journalist. The human interest story, which has been given by the people who are interested in that, who has written a story about that. Again, maybe a journalist or any person, public related or any activist, editorial columns, then letters to editors and photos. These were the news items from these newspapers were chosen by Mr. David, and this is the findings which has come out. The method of this cause for, or a method of dowry death, pouring kerosene, poisoning, these are the methods. And location, I'm not giving you the entire outcome of the study, just for your reference. I've given two tables. What are the methods they've used by the victim in the dowry related death case, and in what location? This is a finding. This is a content analysis. So anything like this, any particular phenomena or any particular, assume now a COVID pandemic is there. If any of person, anyone is interested in carrying out a research in the present pandemic situation, either to study about the economic packages offered by the government, or any financial packages offered by the government, or if you want to study the problems faced by the migrant laborers. So a lot of things can be analyzed. Content is not necessary for the researcher, because we are also in a pandemic situation, not necessary. It's not possible for the researcher to go out, move out of the place of their residence to conduct research work. Still staying inside the door, we can carry out the research using this methodology, content analysis, and come out with a nice, beautiful outcome, which will also enhance the quality of research carried out by the researcher. And physical tools are used. Whether whatever may be the method of carrying out a qualitative research, there are various digital methods are nowadays used. So I have divided these digital methods as under two heads: asynchronous and synchronous. Let me first explain what is synchronous and what is asynchronous. And asynchronous is anytime. Anytime means, assume I would like to carry out a research on asynchronous mode through a digital, using a digital tool. Not necessary for me to be with the respondent, with my target audience at the same time, anytime. I can send an email, give a time frame within which the respondent should have to respond, or an information, a question can be posted in a forum, give a time frame to respond, or wiki or podcast or weblog. That's anytime. Not necessary for the researcher to carry out the research simultaneously, either through interview or whatever the methodology the researcher would like to adopt. It's at a different time. That's what asynchronous. Synchronous is the real time. It means the researcher and the respondents will be at the same time. They will, once the interview is going on, the researcher interviews the person. Any mode of interview method can be used, but response should be immediate. It is not anytime. That's what it is, a real time. Even marketing research are being carried out, including both real time and anytime. It's not always possible to complete the research only through an asynchronous tools or through a synchronous tool. There are certain information, certain clarification about a research problem or a phenomena which need to be clarified instantly. Then a researcher can use the synchronous tools. If time can be given by the researcher, giving some time for the respondent to respond, the researcher can switch over to asynchronous tool. Both can be used, both because it's real time and anytime. Both can be used by the researcher to make the research more effective, more useful, because this kind of approach will give the participants also a comfortable time for them to think. You just ask for instant message, or through a chat, a researcher collects certain information from the respondent for a further clarification through a chat message, and email ID can be obtained, or a forum, wherever, whichever forum the researcher would like to start the discussion, or any weblog which has been created, any podcast which is going to take place, that can be informed, and they can be asked to listen to that at a later time and respond to that. That's how marketing research can also be carried out, and any other social research can also be carried out through this digital tools. So those whoever is good in using the digital tools, especially the young researchers, the young academicians who are conversant with the usage of digital tools, they can always apply these tools, and because it's easy for the researcher, less time, less expensive, from the place in the remote, it's a remote connections. And time is also not a problem because the researcher can adopt both a synchronous real time and asynchronous anytime method of this thing. So definitely the researcher will be able to collect valuable and qualitative information from the respondents by applying these research tools in their study. So these digital tools, it's not only for content analysis, it can be for any of the qualitative research methods, whether it is a focus group or ethnography or an interview method, whatever the research, qualitative research method chosen by the researcher, this digital tools can be applied by the researcher. So that's all about qualitative research method. Let me now move on to quantitative research methods. And the quantitative research method concept is not new to you. As I've already explained, it's a quantitative data, gathering a quantitative data. So how to gather a quantitative data? It can be through a survey research, or it can be through a correlational research, or it can be through a quasi-experimental or experimental research. Survey research, all of us are familiar with that. It is the most fundamental tool for all quantitative research methodologies and studies. Surveys used to ask questions to the respondents through polls or through online. Let's see the methods, tools used by the survey here. By conducting a survey research, the researcher can ask multiple questions, because questionnaire is normally used as a tool, and analysis, a detailed analysis is possible through a survey research. So to conduct any detailed analysis, which is quantitative in nature, if a quantitative nature of study need to be collected, survey is the fundamental tool to be used. Then correlation research. What is this correlation research? Without survey research, it's not possible to conduct a correlation research, because correlation research is conducted to establish a relationship between two closely knit entities or variables. Normally, in any research design, we'll use a lot of variables. The researchers will use a lot of variables for the study. In a correlation research design, it is possible to measure a relationship between two variables. That's why it is called correlation. Whether there is a relationship is there or not. That's why the positive correlation. Let me give an example of a positive correlation. There is an increase in income. Increase in income leads to increase in expenses. There is a positive correlation. Income increases, expenses also increases. Income decreases, expenses decreases. Both move in the same direction. So both the variables considered for the study move in the same direction. That is a positive. Negative when it moves in the opposite direction. Assume consumption of coffee. Coffee consumption increases, tiredness decreases. Normally the consumers consume coffee to come out of the tiredness, to feel fresh. So more coffee, less tiredness. It's moving in the opposite direction. That's a negative. And zero correlation, two variables are not at all related. Same example, coffee and the weight. Sorry, coffee and the height, I can say. Consumption of coffee, increase in the consumption of coffee, we cannot say decrease or increase in the height. There is no correlation at all between the height of a person and the quantum of the coffee consumed by the person. So that is the correlation research. So correlation research can be carried out, which is a quantitative research method used by the researcher. And quasi-experimental. This is a quasi because in an experimental research, let me tell about experimental research so that you can understand what is quasi-experimental research. Experimental research is a scientific approach, and any scientific theory or scientific design research need to be carried out, or any hypothesis need to be tested. We can carry out the experimental research. Normally in an experimental research, it's an establishment of cause and effect relationship. So in a cause and effect relationship, normally the respondents will be in two groups, control group and the experimental group. Some intervention will be there. Through the intervention only, it is possible to analyze the result in an experimental research. So some randomization is carried out in selecting these group members. That is an experimental research. Whereas there is no randomization at all in carrying out, and then we call it as a quasi. No, not randomly assigned. The groups are not randomly assigned. When the groups are randomly assigned, we call it as an experiment. When it is not randomly assigned, it is a quasi-experiment. The methodology is almost the same between this quasi and experimental design. And let me move on to the data collection tools used by the researcher involved in quantitative research. Excuse me. Survey is one of the method. And survey is, how do you define? It's a method, research method used for collecting a data from a predefined group of respondents to gain some information or insights about the topic of the interest of the researcher. And it can be online polls or online surveys or through paper questionnaire, or it can also be web-related. Web intercept surveys may also be carried out to those who are used to digital tools. They can adopt a web intercept surveys. Experimental research, as I told you, is a scientific approach. One or more independent variables are manipulated and applied to one or more dependent variables to measure their effect, right? And the effect of independent variables on the dependent variables usually observed and recorded to aid researchers in drawing a reasonable conclusion regarding the relationship between these two variables. That is then experimental. These are the two methods, two tools. Either it can be a survey or an experimental tool. So if it is an experimental tool, how we define the group, how we manipulate how the researcher manipulate the dependent and independent variables, it is experimental. Then no manipulation is done, survey is collected, whatever may be the mode of survey, analyze it using statistical or mathematical tool, that is a survey method. So that's the difference between the survey and experimentation. Normally researchers in India, they adopt only the survey method. Even in a quantitative research, experimental research, cause and effect relationship, manipulation of variables are not at all done much by the researchers in the field of social sciences. I think we can set time for all of us to move on to the experimental mode of research, also a tool which will enhance the quality of research. And I told you in the previous slide, in a survey, which is the fundamental tool, and even for carrying out an experimental research to know about certain variables, some questions need to be asked. So question is very important. And let me move on. I've just now finished with the first part of my presentation. I've explained to you what the various tools used, both in the qualitative and quantitative, right? If I'm right, both in qualitative and quantitative, questions are required. That's why question types becomes essential part of this statistical tool. In a qualitative study, if a researcher wants to conduct an interview, questions are required. In a quantitative, when a survey methodology is adopted, when a questionnaire needs to be prepared, question types, questions need to be asked. So there are different types of asking questions. So let me move on to the second part of this presentation, question types. Okay. So we should know what is a question. And asking question is also a skill, because question has been defined as a sentence that seeks an answer for the purpose of information collection, either to test it or to carry out the research, right? When you test it, it's an experimental. When you analyze it using statistical tool, it's also a research. So a sentence should give the researcher a right answer. That's why I said asking question, it's also a skill. Good question produce accurate responses, right? It means if a question is not good, response will also not be good. If a response is not good, we understand the quality of a research carried out by the researcher. How the questions are asked. The art of asking the right question help the researcher to get a deep insight into the research problem. And to know how to ask questions, it's imperative to know the basic type of questions. So how to ask questions, we need to know. Before I move on to the types of questions, let me tell, questioning is an art. And a sentence should evoke a proper response. Accurate response improves the quality of research. Accurate response gives the answer for the research problem. So inaccurate means the answer will not be obtained. The researcher will not be able to obtain the required answer for the research problem. Then the art. So from where do the researcher get these art and the way of asking questions? Before I move on to this, I would like to throw some light here with regard to from how is it possible for the researcher to ask the right question in a right manner, in the right form. That's where the review of literature becomes essential. And you all would have had on a second session on heard about plagiarism and other things. So now in India, we are moving towards more authentic research and other things. So here, the researcher at this point have to throw more light on how to prepare a good question. What are the questions? How to come out with the good questions? Only then the questionnaire will be a right questionnaire. Questionnaire is only, it's a piece of paper. If it is a conventional way of questionnaire where the questions are typed, that's a questionnaire, right? So the quality of questions, the researcher need to do a lot of review to frame a sentence. A question is defined as a sentence related to the problem or related to the purpose of the study. So from where do the researcher get this sentence? Only through the review of literature. Questions, right question, accurate question need to be asked. So lot of time need to be spent by the researcher in the review. Reviewing the past research work carried out in the same field where the present research is going to be carried out, so that the researcher can identify the research gap, identify a right problem, then identifying what are the questions need to be asked, right? So a lot of time and energy need to be put by the researcher in framing right sentences, in asking good questions and right questions in the right manner, right? So types of questions are there, right? Even if a researcher knows what are the types of questions, what question should be there in that particular type, multiple choice question is one of the type. If the right choices are not given, gone. The researcher will not be able to elucidate the right information from the respondent. For that reason, it is imperative for the researcher to understand the research problem in full, do a lot of review, find out what are the sentences which need to be provoked, what are the questions which need to be provoked to the audience, so that a right insight can be gained by the researcher. Let me move on to the types of questions. Diacritics questions, these are all not new to the researchers, which all of us know. Here only two options, yes or no, right? Do you like the product? Yes or no. Do you have a bank account? Yes or no, right? So have you used the product earlier? Yes or no. So these kind of questions is diacritics questions. Then multiple choice questions. That's why I told you in framing them, providing a multiple choice, the researcher need to be very careful. What are the choices the researcher going to provide in a multiple choice? depends on the knowledge level of the researcher with regard to that particular. Here I've given an example, favorite pizza topping. Assume you have never had a pizza and you go walk into the pizza shop, and if the the person there in the counter asks you what topping would you like to have, if you do not have any knowledge of it, it is not possible for you to answer to that question. Or the person at the counter, let me put it that way, the person at the counter is not aware of, you are asking, I say, I'm a new customer, I don't know what is the topping. And I ask, what are the toppings available? If the salesperson there is unaware of it, he won't be able to give a right options, choices. Same is the case with regard to any research question. Whatever the multiple choices given should be very relevant to the question asked. It should not be overlapping. It should not be misleading, right? It should elucidate the correct information which is required for the study. So multiple choice question, as you look at it, it may be easy. It looks very simple. But what are the multiple choices given by the researcher? Whether it is able to elucidate the information which the researcher wants is more vital at this point of time. Then the other type of question is a rank order scaling. In the rank order question type, the researcher allows the respondents to rank the preferences in a question in the order of their choice, right? The question type is used to understand. So whenever this type of rank order question is given, it should give a good understanding of the weightage. Assume 5 sentences are there. And if the researcher has asked the respondent to rank, the respondent should be able to understand the weightage of each of the sentences given, which is to be ranked. So that is more essential in a rank order scaling question. And if any wrong weightage is there, or if the respondent has not understood the weightage properly, the rank provided by the respondent, because only at the option of the respondent, the ranks are provided. So the ranks will go wrong. It means the study's outcome of the study will also not be a good outcome. It may sometimes be lead to an inaccurate outcome. So in this rank order scaling questions, the rank order the respondents can be given access to any of these types. That's when we go through a digital mode, these types of 4 types of rank order scaling will be applied. One is drag and drop. In the drag and drop, if 5 sentences are there, they have to drag and drop. So 5 sentences, they have to pick and drop in the order. That is why it's called as drag and drop order. This is possible only when the list is very short. Only 5 or 6 or 7 items are there. When the short lists are there, drag and drop order can be adopted by the researcher. When they have the list is longer, the radio button types can be used to choose a rank for each of the items given in the list for ranking, right? That's when more variables, more sentences are there, radio button is preferable. Text box is another type. Here, respondents can be forced to rank all options. When the researcher wants the respondent to rank all the options, this type of text box type can be chosen by the researcher. So we call it as a validation type, so that they can also select either horizontally, vertically, and force them to choose. They will not miss out any of the options provided by the researcher. Then the 4th type is a select box type. In the select box type, it is an alternative of drag and drop box type, and respondents have to click the arrows to move each item up and down. That is more easier. Select box, the arrow will be there, should be provided. It's all only when digital method of ranking is there, it's possible. So they will use that arrow and move the arrows up and down to this. That's called select box type, right? So this is one type of, so we have seen three types of questions here. Let me move on to another type of question. So this is an example of drag and drop, and also the other types, test box and select box types. Then have a look at it. Let me move on to the other type of question, contact information question. So contact information questions, it's all a basic information from the respondents, right? Name is not compulsory. It should be always kept optional. So other details may be known later on. If any clarification is required, it's easy for the researcher to identify. Then demographic questions should also be asked in any research. It helps to capture the demographic data of the population set, right? So whatever the sample chosen from the population, the researcher need to know the demographic pattern of it. To capture that, these demographic questions will help the researcher. Then matrix table questions are arranged in a tabular format. It could be questions are put in a tabular form, and the multiple variants will be there. So in that occasion, it has to be in the matrix table type only. Then visual analog questions. So some visual thing like thumbs up and thumbs down, some sign of visual sign when it is given, and it is termed as a visual. It can be to know the opinion or to know whether it is positive or negative. Then in the other circumstances, this visual analog questions can be used. And Likert scale question. So Likert scale can be from 5 to 7 or even 10-point Likert scale are there. It measures the response. It's why in a diagram we say only yes or no. Between yes and no, no other options are given. That's why that yes or no diatomist type questions should not be asked for all the variables. When it is necessary for certain variables to know more about the respondent's opinion, then there is a need to go for a Likert scale. That's why I told you in a question type itself, the researcher should know for what type of question there is a need to elucidate only yes or no is enough. Do I use ATM card? Yes or no, right? How I'm satisfied that there's a usage of an ATM card of a particular bank, yes or no, will not elucidate the right information. How a customer is satisfied with a particular product introduced by a company, yes or no, is not a sufficient way of elucidating the information. So based on this, question sentences frame and the nature of or the in-depth nature of the information required, it is necessary to put those questions in the Likert scale, right? So that more information, better accurate information and reliable information can be elucidated from the researcher. That's why it is a thick image question is used to increase the response rate among the respondents to click on images, because it will be boring for the researcher. In this again, image questions possible only if the researcher has decided to collect the data through the digital mode, not in the conventional mode of this thing. So these are the different types of questions. So I've now completed the second part. The researcher, let me give a brief note of what I have spoken this last 1 hour. With regard to the research tool, it is essential for the researcher first to identify what type of research design, whether a qualitative research design or a quantitative research design. And we have seen different types of qualitative. If the researcher has decided to do a qualitative research study, which type of method they are going to use, based on that only tools will be decided. If the researcher has decided to do a quantitative study, it can be either through a survey or through experimental mode. In both the qualitative and quantitative, there is a need to ask questions. And questions should be asked in such a way to elucidate the right information and the accurate information, which is related to the research problem or a situation or the research question. When the researcher fails to elucidate the right information, it is very difficult to get an answer for the research question. the objectives of the study itself will not be met. The outcome of the study may not relate to the research question or the objectives of the study. Hence, the question types and how the questions are asked is essential. In that juncture, I mentioned about conducting a review of literature. So review of literature is essential for the researcher if a good questions are to be framed. And once the good questions are framed, it will be put in the questionnaire form. Right? So questionnaire is nothing but it's a tool used to collect the data. And the questionnaire can be an unstructured questionnaire or a structured questionnaire. I hope you will be able to understand when the unstructured questionnaire can be used. Normally, in the qualitative study, then the interview or any mode focus group or wherever they want to elucidate information from the respondents or from the target group, the questionnaire type will be unstructured. So unstructured, why it is unstructured? There will be questions, the guiding questions, which an interviewer would like to ask the respondent. But in this unstructured questionnaire type, the questions which the researcher is going to ask may not always be predetermined. Only the context, the concepts, or the areas where there is a need for clarification will be planned and prepared by the researcher. What is a specific question to be asked depends on how the respondent responds. Because if it is an in-depth interview or a personal interview, whether it is done in a traditional mode or in a virtual mode, based on the respondent's response, the interviewer need to modify the way the questions are put forth to the interviewee, the respondent. In that sense, it is unstructured. So it will not have 1 to 10 questions, means in the order 1 to 10, come on, ask and give an answer. That is not an unstructured. Only the concepts which need to be elucidated, clarified, what are the problems which need to be clarified, that will be there in an unstructured, right? So the sequence is also not a predetermined. Then it is an unstructured. In a quantitative study, it's not possible to use an unstructured questionnaire. This is possible only in the qualitative design or qualitative methods are used by the researcher. They can stick to this unstructured. In the structured questionnaire, it's where it consists of a set of standardized questions and the order, everything. We hand over the questionnaire. That's why normally we administer the questionnaire to the respondents without any choice to them. They have to answer the question in the order in which it is given. And that's why while framing the question, I mentioned that we need to be very careful. If there is any wrong choices are given in a multiple choice question, in a structured questionnaire, the researcher will not give a room for the respondent to clarify and say that the choices given are wrong or overlapping. So it is not possible at all. That's why the researcher needs to be very cautious while preparing the questions, especially for the structured questionnaire, because it's a collection of a data in a predetermined, by administering a predetermined set of questions. It has to be ordered in the same way, in the same sequence, without making any alterations, right? That's the structured questionnaire. So now I hope you understand the importance of the questionnaire. So when the questionnaire is prepared, it has to be an effective questionnaire. First, we need to define the topic. The researcher needs to define the topic which the researcher wants to cover. So the topic should be there. And when the questions are ranked, the questions are arranged in the questionnaire, this image which you see in the screen is called a funnel system. So on the top, first the questionnaire should start with questions which require thinking. That is why cognitive power. Because you administer a question for the purpose of research. Actually, I administer a question because I want to carry out a research. I would like to elucidate some information through a questionnaire. And I give it to X, Y, or Z. What is the benefit for X, Y, or Z in filling my questionnaire and giving it back to me? For me, I am a researcher, I am an academician. I need to elucidate some information for my study. So I need information from them. So I administer a question. I get benefited. I complete my study. I find out a problem for the solution for the problem which has been identified. But what is the benefit for the participant? Literally no benefit at all. That's why the researcher need to be very careful when they arrange the sequence of questions in the questionnaire. It should start with questions which require more cognitive power, more thinking. They have to think and answer. They cannot simply answer. Because after filling one page, when they move on to that next page, the interest in filling up the questionnaire will come down. They will not be able to apply the mind. The participants, the respondents may not be able to apply the mind. Not all participants will be able to apply the mind throughout the questionnaire. So when we proceed down, the researcher should ask questions which involves less cognitive power. For example, I will give you one example of digital marketing. If a researcher wants to carry out a study on digital marketing, many questions the researcher must have identified. So let me put it this way. Some questions relating to traditional marketing and digital marketing. The researcher gives certain statements with regard to traditional marketing and certain statements with regard to digital marketing, and would like to give the opinion, either agree strongly at a 5-point Likert scale or a 7-point or 9-point Likert scale. The researcher need to think once or twice before they tick whether they strongly agree or disagree or neutral. If they don't understand, they'll put neutral for all the choices. Then outcome of the work will be not accurate, will not be good. So these type of questions are very important, very essential to understand the digital marketing concept, which requires a lot of thinking by the person who fills in the questionnaire, which requires more of cognitive power, which need to be on the top first. You should start with those questions. Then reasons for choosing online, maybe in another set of questions, which do not require much thinking like the thinking required for conventional marketing and digital marketing. Then availability of online information about a particular product you would like to ask in digital marketing. That and all, no need think. Whether the product is available in online, some information is available, they can just look at it, they can give. And what are the benefits of digital marketing? Quickly they can understand, because without much of thinking, they can answer. So when that's why we call it as a topic, and ranked topics means sub-things, subtopics, sub-things. So normally in a research, we do it in the form of an objectives of the study, the sub-themes. So when it is arranged, it has to be arranged in that sequence so that it is possible for the researcher to collect very accurate information and reliable information from the respondents. Then define your questions, whether you're going to ask an open-ended question or a close-ended question. I hope you know what is an open-ended question. Close-ended means yes, no. No options are there, no opportunity is given to the researcher, the respondent to respond in a different way. That is a close-ended. Open-ended question is where the option is given. In a qualitative research, it is possible to have an open-ended question. It's better to have an open-ended question because more information may be elucidated from the respondents. More insight can be drawn by the researcher from the respondents. So open-ended questions, try to avoid in the quantitative survey, in a survey method where structured questionnaire are administered. It's better to have open-ended question in the interview mode. Develop questions for your questionnaire. We need to develop, when we develop a good questions, as I've already mentioned, it has to be clear and should be concise. It should be direct. We should not make a long sentences. When a question is developed for each of the variable, when a long sentences are made, the respondents needs more time to understand the sentence. So it has to be direct sentence, clearly mentioned, and it should be as simple and as small. It should not be a lengthy sentence. It should also restrict the length of the questionnaire. Don't give and administer a questionnaire which runs into pages. That will dilute the outcome of the research, because the respondent may feel bored after filling 2-3 pages and simply tick even without applying the mind and without seeing. So for a good response from the respondents, it's better to restrict the length of the questionnaire into a shorter length, not to have a very lengthy questionnaire. important is, even if a good questionnaire is prepared, assume you have a good knowledge of the subject, good sentences are being framed, good questions, good type of question has been chosen by the researcher, and it is a very good effective questionnaire has come out. But if the questionnaire has not been administered to the right audience, it will not elucidate the right information required by the researcher. In the example, I said digital marketing. And one of the questions is whether information about a particular product online. Have you seen some of the sentences you have given? A group of people who have never done online shopping or not tech-savvy people, if the question is administered to that group of people, it is not possible for the researcher to elucidate the right information. Online banking. If a researcher would like to collect information regarding online banking, if a person has not used online banking other than withdrawing card through ATM or making some payments, that's all, but a lot of things, online banking activities are there. And you have asked a lot of questions in the questionnaire about online banking. A person who is not conversant with the online banking is administered the questionnaire, may not be able to provide right information. So we need to identify a right target group, whether the target audience are going to be whether the topic or the sub-themes are related to women, the women should be a target audience. If it's an younger generation, younger audience, what age group the researcher would like to have. And if it's going to be a mixed, then how the mixer is going to be. That's the identifying a target audience, which is very essential for a quest and while administering a questionnaire. Then we need to pre-test the questionnaire, right? You identify a target group, identify 50 people, assume you want to carry out, you want to collect 1,000 questionnaire, don't do it before you pre-test the questionnaire. Then we call it as a pilot study. Administer 50 questions or 100 questions to the identified target group. And based on their response, any corrections, anything need to be made, alterations can be made, develop a final one, and guarantee the privacy of the respondents. Tell them for what purposes data is going to be collected. You ask for their salary income, monthly income details. Not all of them may be comfortable in providing the monthly income details. The researcher might ask for the age of respondents. Not all the respondents be interested in disclosing their age. So in that case, you will miss out certain information. So it is necessary to assure the respondents that the particular information collected is only going to be used for this particular purpose, and it will not be used for, especially in this present world of digital world, people are scared of furnishing details. And when the topics chosen by the researcher is very sensitive, this kind of assurance must be provided by the researcher. So the researcher needs to be very careful in elucidating the right information by choosing the right questions, by choosing a right demographic audience, and also assuring them their privacy will be protected. Then administer the questionnaire after pre-testing the questionnaire. The questionnaire will definitely be an effective questionnaire, right? So let me move on to the last part of this. There are a lot of measurement scales need to be used in the questionnaire when these are there. So we need to understand those measurement scale. First, let me say, the first one is an interval scale. What is your annual income in Indian rupees? We have given the income less than 4 to 6 lakhs, 1 to 8 lakhs. So this is called an interval scale. So interval scale, when to use? It's used when the variables involve an order or a rank. And it is numerical values should be there. So when a numerical values need to be collected and it has to be in some order, then the researcher need to use the interval scale for the purpose of framing the question in a questionnaire. Then let's move on to the ratio scale. Ratio scale, I've given an example, what is your age? So this ratio scale is numerical, but with an additional property like what is your age, or for example, duration of employment, how long you have been in employment, we ask in a certain research. So that we call it as a ratio scale, because that helps in measuring certain aspect of the study, whether this particular age group, how do they respond to this particular, or a people with these many years of experience, how do they respond? Assume you are studying the about online banking service quality. People who have been using it only for the past 3 years, how have they responded? People who have been using it for more than 10 years, how they have responded? So when that kind of analysis need to be done, this ratio scale questions will help the researcher in carrying out this thing. Then another one is an nominal scale. Nominal scale is what is your gender, that kind of questions we need to ask. Nominal scale classifies variables that do not involve any numerical values. So when male, female, right? No numerical values are there. You need to elucidate certain information, like what is the area of work in the IT industry, right? And these kind of information where numerical values are not possible, this nominal scale need to be applied while asking questions, right? And another one is an ordinal scale where these Likert points are applied. You can apply a 5-point Likert scale or a 7-point or a 9-point Likert scale depending on the researcher's interest in carrying out the task. The researcher can carry out the Likert scale, right? So when to use which measurement scale? When the variables has no specific sequence, the researcher need to apply the nominal scale. When the variable has a specific sequence in which you have ordered, but the difference between two variables cannot be calculated, then the researcher can apply the ordinal scale. When the variable has a sequence, can be expressed in units of measurement and in intervals, the researcher can use either an interval scale or a ratio scale. When the variable has a sequence, can be expressed in units of measurement as well as intervals, and also can take a value of 0, then it has to be in the ratio scale. So that's how when a question is prepared, it is essential for the researcher to identify the right question, make a right sentence, ask an appropriate question, which type of question, then which measurement scale need to be adopted in framing the questionnaire, need to be identified by the researcher. Only then the research will be a right one, right? So before I conclude, let me give a checklist for the questionnaire. The questionnaire is given to elucidate information from the respondents to find a solution for the problem, or objectives are framed for the study. It has to give answer for those objective statements. So we have to start, we have to know, the researchers should know what is the purpose of the survey. It should be very clear. Identify who is likely to have the information you need. It means determining the target audience, determine the sample group. Understand the difference between open-ended and close-ended questions. We should not give open-ended questions in all the circumstances. Especially in a quantitative survey, the researcher will have a lot of hardship in analyzing it if it is left open. Lot of responses will be elicited. It may not be possible for the researcher to analyze the data in a proper manner. Avoid asking biased or misleading questions, right? It should not be very, that's why I said review of literature is necessary. Understanding of a concept, understanding of the problem is essential. If that is there, then it will not have a biased or misleading questions. Lay out the questionnaire in a clear and logical manner by grouping related questions. So all the related questions should be grouped together so that some logical sequence it can be arranged. It will also be easy for the respondent to respond to the questions. How you are going to administer the questionnaire, whether you're going to collect it in a conventional mode or the researcher is going to use the tools for the collection purpose, then that should also be decided. Also sufficient time to trial the questionnaire before going live if the digital mode is going to be chosen by the researcher. Now, how you're going to record and analyze the results. That applies in the case of a qualitative study. Qualitative research, I mentioned audio recording, if the researcher adopts the interview method, audio recording or video recording is need to be there. Whatever it is recorded need to be analyzed. Recording may not be a problem because of the availability of technology and a lot of softwares are there. However, that is how the researcher is going to analyze those results. And analysis becomes an essential part of any data collection. And know when a result is significant. Whether a result is significant or not significant, the researcher should know. So the questionnaire should be able to provide a significant information to the researcher. Only then the researcher can be successful in carrying out the study. So let me conclude with this, with the one quote given by one professor, Dr. Niz Ahmed. It is important to set results from experiment, but most important is the process in getting the results. So I hope you all would have been benefited by listening to me for this past 1.5 hours about this various methods of conducting a research and the tools available, and more important is the process in which all these things are carried out, whatever may be the method of research chosen by the researcher. Let me wish you all a good success in the future endeavor of all the participants, and thank you.
So thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
So for your wonderful presentation,
Thank you, sir.
100 hours you have speak a very highly informative session, this one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Almost all the areas, questionnaire format, data collection, entire part you have touched. Our participants really enjoyed. And also some of the participants, they
Yes.
have raised some questions
Okay.
regarding the COVID-19.
Yeah.
The outbreak and affect negatively to collect the data.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the research scholars and PhD scholars, they are going to do the PhD. But at the time of COVID-19, too difficult to collect the data. But what about your opinion? What about your suggestion? How they want to collect the data to submit the report?
Yeah, they can conduct an online survey, but I think it's better for the scholars if it is a PhD thesis. It depends on the topic. For some of the topics, it is not possible to elucidate the necessary information through online tools because it's based on the target audience. If the target audience, if they've chosen one from particular place, it's very difficult to connect to them in a digital mode. So if the target audience is very wide, if the sample has not been narrowed down to a smaller section of the population, then maybe they can think of applying an online tools. Otherwise, especially for a PhD thesis, to have a better accuracy and reliable information, it's better to administer the questionnaire directly to the respondents in a traditional mode. So they can use this time, pandemic time, when the researcher is unable to go out, one part of the PhD work, they can do it online. And they can get some information, collect some data, publish a paper, because that is also a requirement for the scholars, and it's also a learning process for the scholars. For the completion of a thesis in Indian context, it may not be possible for the researcher to carry out through a digital mode, but part of their research work can be completed through a digital mode by adopting any one of the methods.
Then another participants,
Yeah.
How to analyze the data collected at a different time points and different between groups.
Yeah, focus groups, when it is collected, there is a different way of analyzing data because they have to gather the data. Assume if a focus group is there, they have to tabulate it. And if ethnography is there, even an example I told, they collected information for nearly a certain period, 6 years. So how much of this information, it has to be numerically brought in. It has to be tabulated. Only then it is possible for the researcher to come to the consensus about the study. Otherwise, it's not possible.
Okay, okay. Then one participant from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
So he has raised one doubt. What is the easiest way to collect global financial data?
Is a primary or a secondary data?
So he's going to raise the question, the global financial data.
Global financial data.
Yeah.
Yeah, global financial data, they can have, World Bank provides a lot of information about a lot of countries, and IMF, all those people, they can give the data global, country-wise.
Oh, I see. Okay. And ma'am,
Yes.
Likert scale represent on interval scale or ordinal scale?
The interval scale, we cannot have a Likert scale. It's not possible, because when the interval scale is there, 10,000 to 20,000, that's an interval. And it's not possible to have a Likert scale for interval scale. It should be for an ordinal scale.
Okay. Then one more question.
Yes, sir.
As a social scientist, anticipating new religious research on COVID-19, what should quality or quantity of region by asking?
At this point of time, it is easier to do qualitative research study because a lot of information is available in the newspaper, various media, so many documents are coming out, and the government is releasing a lot of documents. So all those documents may be used by the researcher who is interested in that aspect, and because it's not possible to move out and collect data. So they can do some content analysis or some focus group also, if it's possible for them to connect online. Focus group may also be arranged, or in-depth interview. So qualitative will be better. Or if someone has already done, a lot of papers have already been published in a COVID. So the cause and effect relationship, it's only manipulating of variables, dependent and independent variables. If somebody has done a research identifying cause and effect relationship, and if assume the researcher wants to disprove it or try it, whether check whether that is right or not, they can again do different kinds of manipulations, either prove it or disprove whatever the research has earlier been done by the researcher.
Then how to collect data from Google Map?
From Google Map.
Yeah.
From Google, I'm not so well versed in digital technology, and I think what kind of information need to be collected from Google Map?
So simply they are raising the question, how to collect the data from Google Map?
So for Google Map, if they want to analyze a particular area, assume number of branches are there, or how number of ATMs in a particular location or a particular country, how many locations of ATMs are there, that kind of information through Google Map, it's possible. So I don't know what is there in the minds of the person who has asked it.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One the participants from Punjab.
Yeah.
How to compare two questionnaire in one sample within two experiment in SPSS?
Sorry, sir, I don't get the question.
How to compare the two questionnaire in one sample within two experiment in SPSS?
SPSS is used for analyzing the data collected by the quantitative research method. So they administer a question. It is SPSS is a tool used for analysis. And the experimentation, if the researcher wants to do that, after administering the question, after analyzing it, the researcher need to identify, according to the topic, what is going to be the dependent variable and independent variable, and try to identify cause-effect relationship. That way, it can be an experimental research, but it be only quasi-experimental, because the researcher is not going to have a control group and the experimental group. For control group and experimental group is there only, it becomes a true experiment. For example, you take the same COVID example, they are coming out, many medical sciences, they are coming out with a lot of research. So they have a control group, then the experimental group. Control group is one where in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, they are administering a lot of Siddha medicines and other things. So if they want to test whether a particular Siddha medicine is effective after administering it, whether a person is getting healed or anything, if they want to test, they have a control group. Control group, then nothing will be administered. There is an intervention. Some Siddha medicine need to be administered. It will be given to the experimental group. The experimental group, after administering, they will study the effect. That's how the study can be carried out.
Okay, this is a final question, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So most of the academicians and research scholars, they are doing the PhD in different area, but social science.
Yeah.
At the time of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So what about your opinion, how they want to progress the work, but too difficult to collect the data from outside, but how they want to finish their PhD work within short span of time at the time of COVID-19? What is your suggestion to all the research scholars?
So the one thing I can suggest is the research scholars are expected to have some research publications. They can make use of this time to publish a good paper in a Web of Science or in the Scopus Index journal, which will definitely add value to the researchers. But for the final research, I think it's not possible to cut short and finish it now, because even universities are giving extension of time for everything. So the researchers need not be in a hurry to collect an inaccurate information. They can just wait the situation to become normal and carry out with the research.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much for your wonderful speech and clarifying all the doubts by the
Thank you.
So before giving you a vote of thanks, first of all, really I thank the Chancellor of Noor Islam Center for Education, Dr. A.B. Majid Khan, and the Pro-Chancellor and Vice Chancellor, Registrar, Control of Examination, all the Noor Islam Center for Higher Education, higher officials, they have given full support and cooperation for conducting such a wonderful program, last 5 days program, really successful manner. And I, on behalf of our Faculty of Management Studies, I thank all the Noor Islam Center for Higher Education officials. And also I thank the Director of Management Studies, Dr. K. Janardhanan, Director of Academic Studies, Dr. Sajin Narkunam. So all are giving full support to conduct such a wonderful program without any disturbance. All the participants really enjoyed for the last 5 days from all over the places. And really, I, on behalf of our Faculty of Management Studies, all the niche officials, I heartfelt thank you once again. And also I thank all the participants, not only for India, Punjab and Simla and even Calcutta and Rajasthan and Agra and from foreign countries, particularly Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and most of the participants, they watching this program, so they enjoy, they clarify doubts. Really, they are going to getting more and more exposure about this program. Definitely, their research work is really fantastic in future if it is attend these all the 5 days sessions. So I on behalf of our Noor Islam Center for Education and Faculty of Management Studies, I good heart thank to all the participants. Means all over the places, not only for India and abroad. I thank all the participants once again. And also a special thank to the research person of Dr. Florence John. Ma'am has accepted my invitation. Immediately she has accepted. Okay, sir, I will come to do that work. Anyway, ma'am has giving a wonderful talk, wonderful presentation. All the participants really enjoyed. Really, on behalf of Noor Islam Center for Education and Faculty of Management Studies, once again, I thank ma'am for giving such a wonderful session. Thank you very much, ma'am. And also, I thank the technical advisor, Alan, is also giving full support to conduct this program last 5 days, really successful manner. So definitely, he is also main pillar of this program. I thank Mr. Alan also. Thank you very much, Alan. And also, once again, I thank all the participants. Now I want to give some instruction to all the participants. So all the participants at the time of giving the feedback, you are going to submit your ID card and also your photo is a very, very important one. All the participants at the time of submitting feedback form, you are going to submit both the photo and ID card, number one. Number two, we are going to send the e-certificate within 7 days. We will send the e-certificate within 7 days. Third instruction, all the participants in the organizing committee, we are going to watch all the 5 days. Those who have attended this program, you are getting e-certificate. But we have already given the instruction, 100% attendance keenly we are watching. If you are going to attend all the 5 days, you are getting e-certificate. Okay. Thank you very much, on behalf of Noor Islam Center for Education, and thank you each and everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, man.